got a mortgage, you don't own your property, the bank does. And for
It's
you,
their money.
I started title splitting, buying a multi-pack of Mars bars and trying to sell the individual ones, and I spent this much money on training.
How much was it?
I mean, it was probably 18 grand. Time.
You've been recognised as the Property Investor of the Year in 2022, done over £120 million worth of completed deals across the southeast of England and Ireland.
Years where we bought 30 million quid's worth and 13 million pound shopping centres, and some years where we weren't buying as much and we were tidying up from the year before. So we had construction companies and community interest companies and insurance and a couple of other sort of bolted on services, building up to scale ourselves more effectively. There's no point building a business if you're not building assets. Businesses can come and go, particularly property. You don't know what's going to happen next month. You know, wars, whatever, there's black swans, everything. But over 10 years, you know what's going to happen. Where do you see your core business changing over the next 12 to 24 months?
I'll be out of a job. This episode is sponsored by Merry Oaks Property Finance Brokerage. Merry Oaks is a finance brokerage for investors, developers, landlords, SMEs across the country, helping you with all of your finance needs. So whether it's bridging, development, commercial, buy-to-lets, HMOs, service accommodation, industrial, hotels, the whole 9 yards, whether it's for your portfolio, whether it's for your business, we can support you. Please contact us. We've got the link in the show notes and we look forward to hearing from you. Now, back to the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Property People. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. Max Scott. How are you today, Max?
Very good, thanks. How are you?
Very, very good. Max, we've not met before.
Nope.
So this is a very fresh and raw first meeting, and we're going to get into some really interesting stuff. So I'll do a quick intro, though, from what I've come to understand. You've been recognised as the Property Investor of the Year in 2022.
Yep.
At the Property Investor Awards, a place where I'm a judge, so it is a very, very good accolade. You've had and done over £120 million worth of completed deals across the southeast of England and Ireland.
Yep.
And it's ranging from single lets, large scale developments, building portfolios. You've done quite a lot, and you're quite ambitious as well, that you want to kick on to much bigger numbers. For a lot of people, 120 million is already a massive number that they'll never be able to even imagine themselves getting to, but you've managed to get there, and you want to go to the next level. So before we get into all of that, I always like to start at the very beginning, and more specifically, what type of person were you at school? Did you always know you were going to be in property? Were you mischievous? Were you excited about school? Did you wake up every day going, I cannot wait to get there?
School was okay. I think I didn't wake up and I wanted to do property. What I think is interesting about school is that it doesn't take you anywhere in terms of what you might be good at. It doesn't assess your personality and say, we look at wealth dynamics, say you're a Blaze, don't be an accountant or a lawyer, or vice versa, right? So I didn't have any of that, but I knew I was always kind of entrepreneurial. I started like title splitting, buying a multi-pack of Mars bars and trying to sell the individual ones and stuff, and make the margin. And then I went to university and I started a snoring pillow business, and I just wanted do snoring pillow business.
A snoring pillow?
Yeah, I was in.
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I came across one in Australia and it was pitched for neck ache, and I thought, and they said, oh, and also snoring. And I was traveling with my mate who's bigger than me, probably 115 kilos or something, and it was a nightmare at night with his snoring, and it just kind of stopped him snoring dead. And we're like, oh, this was interesting. So anyway, property started taking off before I could get that business up and running. But I suppose I went to university thinking I've got no idea what I want to do. So I'll do business management, the most generic thing.
That's what I did.
And all I knew is that I wanted to work for a small, fast-growing business where I'd be direct to people at the top. I knew I wanted it to be entrepreneurial and exciting. I was pretty set on always being an entrepreneur. I've never applied for a job, really.
Fair play. Why was it that you really knew that being close to the top was good from a young age? I had the similar advice from my old man, and my dad used to say, just hang out with the managers, and he said, like, they'll help you out. Did you have that innately, or did you have somebody else telling you the similar thing?
So I don't know how much it came from this, but my first job was in a garden centre, right, when I was saving to go travelling.
What age?
Don't know.
16, 15?
I had other jobs before that, right? So actually my first for long-term job, right? For like 4 months plus. Proper job. And it was so fucking repetitive and boring. And I was sat on the tills. I thought, this is, and like no one would come in for the first hour and a half. And it's like, ah. And I reached the conclusion that the main thing I would never do is something repetitive and boring. And I thought, most jobs, you're a small part of a big ecosystem. And I like spotting patterns and opportunity and work. Then when I've got an itch to do something, that self-motivation is huge. Whereas if you tell me to do something that I'm not interested in, it doesn't matter what the reward is at the end, I can't do it. So I was drawn to the creative and the idea of entrepreneurship, and I just love the idea of moving forward. I think I read a couple of books when I was traveling. I can't even remember what they were. And I think that set me on a business
good books
and entrepreneurship. Well, I mean, it was 20 years ago, right? So there's that I'll bear in mind.
Wasn't like Rich Dad Poor Dad or anything like that?
So Rich Dad Poor Dad I did read, and it was around that time. That was the only property book I've ever read, and that my mum got me. And then it was a couple of years after that, I was looking to go into property, and I saw a little Facebook ad pop up, Robert Kiyosaki at the Brighton Centre, and I thought, no way, he's going to be at the Brighton Centre, free 2-hour seminar as well. That's cool. And then of course it was like, he was about a million miles away in America and the other side of the world. But, I quite enjoyed the 2-hour seminar. Then they convinced me to spend $1,000 on a 3-day course. And on the 3-day course, I spent my money I'd save for a deposit for a property on the
training.
full training. And then
what was the name of the training?
It was Tigrant at the time. They changed names quite a few times, which I think is probably a bad sign. And I won't, it got me where I am. But I think
a lot of people have done well off the back of those things. Maybe more.
My thing is that they oversold it, and they made it sound easy. I would say, like, they can say it's really good, but make it sound really hard. And don't get everyone to try and put their course on a credit card, because it's not meant for everyone, and people that fail then kind of struggle, So I think just make it sound hard, because it is very hard.
There is a little bit of controversy around these training courses. They do make them sound a little bit more simplistic than they really are.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
But it worked out for you, because I think, sometimes as well, you look at these things and think, well, that person was always going to make it, whether they went on that training course or not. And you come across with the energy that you've got and the results that you've already had, you're probably going to find a way to somehow. But did that training course really help you? Because you went on and bought the next thing and the next thing, and what happened next?
Yeah, so I guess it showed me the potential. And just to be clear, it's not my portfolio that I built to 120 million. I did it as a minority shareholder for someone else. So we did it together, effectively. We co-founded it, and I was a minority shareholder, and it was a great journey. Remind me of your question, sorry?
What happened from, you did the Tigrant thing, how did you kick on from
So I
there?
then went to someone I was working for at the time and said, I'm going to go do property now. And I spent this much money on training, and his sort of like jaw gradually came up off the floor.
How much was it?
It was probably 18 grand, and I was probably on 25 or something
Plus
at the time, and that was before tax, right? So it was like basically a year's worth of salary. It was like, are you insane?
No, but I am invested.
Yeah, exactly. And then I suppose what that gave me, I was working for another business in the time, and I carried on for about 4 to 5, 6 months in that other business, and then luckily that started winding down as a business, and so I could put more time into property. But at first I would study from 6 a.m. till 9 a.m. every day in work before I started my day job, and I just couldn't get enough of it, and I couldn't sleep once I learned stuff. I just dots started connecting, and I saw possibilities, right? And but if you're on 25 grand at the time, and someone tells you can get your money out on a house and then have 500 quid a month cash flow, I'm like, well, even if I only buy one house and then pay that off by the time I retire, that is the state pension. I've got to do that once. That's like level 1. And then where can you go from there? So actually the early years, the company didn't make much money itself, like the trading business that I was buying for. So we didn't buy that much. We got a couple of HMOs in the first couple of years, but I worked like I was building an empire already. And I got shiny penny syndrome. It was a massive distraction. Every time someone told me, oh, I learned this, or I did this, I'm like, oh God, maybe that's why it's not working for me yet, and I should go and do that and research. But then we started having a bit of money, and we'd only done HMOs, and I just thought, oh, there's a property in Dover that's in a Hove auction. I thought, that doesn't look right. And I thought, that looks really cheap. It was 384 or 3 something it was in the auction for. Drove to Dover, it was an hour and 45 minutes, looked it up, thought, I reckon this is worth 600. And in the auction, we had enough to buy it cash. And it was the first cash deal I'd ever done, the first auction deal I'd ever done, first title split I'd ever done. And I paid 484 in the room. And I thought, I've gone 100 grand over the guide here. And I knew nothing about the auction room or what that would do. I thought, I might be in a bit of trouble here. I might have gone too far. And then we painted some lines in the car park. We cut the weeds down, put down some weed-proof matting, some stones, got it valued at 600, and we did our first title split. And it was cool. And then from there, we kind of just then thought, well, I've learned about that strategy now I learned about that strategy. And I was really lucky. the owner of that business really pushed me to try new things. So most people are the opposite. And, the mistakes came from that, but so did all the growth and the opportunity. And so I just learned very quickly and kept pace with the company. And then they had years where they made fortunes and kicked on and moved online and were making 10 million in a year. And that all went to deposit money in property. So we had years where we bought 30 million quid's worth and 13 million pound shopping centres in Ireland. And then some years where we weren't buying as much and we were tidying up from the year before.
Just interrupting this episode to let you know that in the show notes you will find a link to a free deal appraisal calculator. It's a buy, rent, refurbish, refinance calculator that I built. I used it over 550 times to find the first few high-yielding income-producing assets that I bought, and it gives you every single cost that you need in there to make it super granular. It also calculates your finance costs, and you can manipulate and tweak the LTGDVs up and down, the arrangement fees, the interest rates. You hit update model and it will tell you how much cash you are going to make on a monthly basis, as well as your return on capital employed. It also has a section for your incurred monthly expenses if you're doing serviced accommodation or HMO where all bills are inclusive. It's really comprehensive. I use it myself and I want you to use it. Now back to the episode.
So at first, when I started working there, someone else was more senior to me who'd bought 3 properties for them before or something like that. It was a friend of mine. That's how I got introduced to the company. He then left, and then it was just me, and then we got in some property management support, and then eventually I think it got up to like 25 staff. But bearing in mind, we were buying so much at that point that some services are really good. Like mortgage brokers, generally, you find one that's responsive and knows what they're talking about, it's good service. And then there's some industries where it's just like tough. And you're like, I want someone sat there who does this for me. And then every time that opportunity came up, or I met a key person at a business who was kind of like, I thought could run the business, then I'd kind of figure out a way of structuring it where they get small equity, they get to work at a more exciting company, I get the in-house expertise, they start the business, they get all of our business, and that gets them off to a running start, or at least like we're probably not going to be loss making on day one because we've got our own business once we got to a reasonable size. And then that just meant it was a little bit more efficient. So we had construction companies and community interest companies and insurance and a couple of other sort of bolted on services building up to basically for ourselves to scale ourselves more effectively and efficiently. And then, if you've got some spare time, try and get some other clients as well type thing.
So you built a group of companies?
Yeah.
And it all spanned from just the first thing was acquiring a good asset, making a bit of money out of it, and then all the support services around that.
Yeah, I guess so. So a lot of people who start out in property, they need to add value, get as much money out as possible, pay investors back and go again, right? And that wasn't my brief because we had deposit money coming. In fact, if we did that, we'd almost build up too big a problem to handle in 3 years' time. So,
and the deposit money was coming from
the trading business, right? So it was like trading, Propco Investment Co.
Yeah. Sorry, and the trading business was?
It was in the betting and gaming industry.
Okay.
So they went online and made a bigger profit. So then where was I going with that?
So I was just trying to work out that kind of like the whole journey of how this,
Yeah. So what I was saying is basically because we had deposit money coming to us, we didn't need to add value and pull our money out. So my skill became in return on investment and in yield and getting great rents. And so I was one of the first people that got into supported living. Now, like most people who are, a lot of people are doing it, right? And then we set up a community interest company and kind of like fell into a lot of things by accident. But what I'd always have that I think was unique, and you mentioned the hunger and stuff, is like if I thought someone had said something that I was curious about, I think that might change what I was doing. If I was mental busy, I couldn't help but look at that and prioritize that. If a deal came in, I couldn't help but look at that and prioritize that. So I was just like honed in and hungry on those sorts of things, and then whatever mess I created, I'd deal with like afterwards. And I always just found that I could just work relentlessly, to be honest, like early in the morning through to the afternoon. I actually like trying to figure it out on a personal level now because I don't take a break in a 10-hour day. I don't take 5 minutes. I don't take 10 minutes. And I I just can't. And I'm like, actually, that's probably not a good thing. So I need to try and figure out a bit more balance. And that's what, when I had kids, I was like, fuck, I can't juggle all these balls anymore. Whereas I used to be like, oh, give me another ball to juggle. Give me another plate to
your
spin.
productivity falls through the floor when you've had a kid.
And not only that, you're like, if I work as hard as I need to here, like my partner might break, and like, what's more important and what's this all about? So that was one of the decision-making things, which was like, actually, you kind of got this to.
Have you heard of the 4-stove thing, when the gas hob thing, where
No,
basically you've got your family, your friends, your work life, and your health, and you can't have all 4 stoves burning at the same time. So you've literally got to calm one down to be able to sure the other 3 are going. Or if you really want one to go powerful, switch off the other 3.
Yeah, I think that's definitely interesting. And like I'm about 20 kilos lighter than when I first had my child. I was like, peak stress, she's 4 now.
Oh, 20 kilos, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot, right? And a lot of that's come this year as well. Like a few things have clicked into place. But basically my point was I prioritise the gym now, right? Because I know what that's going to do and how that makes like steps in the gym changes how my mind works and how I feel. And I was like neglected it for ages. And now like I had a really busy week this week. Like it was mental and I felt on it and sharp and going through it. But it'd be so easy to say, I'm not going to go to the gym at 9:30 till 10:30 and I'm not going to do the sauna afterwards. But I'm like, sauna's actually good for longevity.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I do. I put in the rocks first, the family first, gym next, and then whatever time I've got left for work, I
That sounds like it comes from a bit of wisdom as well. As you get a bit older, you can make those more intentional decisions. But tell me
it had
about,
to be done like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because
It
health,
got to the
without your
point
health,
where I got forced into adjusting and starting again and rebalancing expectations and building up. And
without your health, all the wealth in the world and everything is just like pointless without having quality time with your family and friends. So tell me about the hectic week that you've just had. So what did it look like? What were you doing on Monday? Today's Friday.
So firstly, I haven't had a holiday in a little while, and we went away 9 days to an all-inclusive. So I got back from that on Saturday, so then I came into
All right.
Monday. I had 9 days off, and I worked quite hard before that. So I was like, literally, my partner obviously told my mum that I've been working quite hard. Like my mum saying, "You're not to work on holiday. You're not to do these things." I'm like, "Well, works." I said, "Mum, there's different types of work, right?" So like, I wouldn't work doing an email in the evening. Like that's work, right? Or at a weekend, that's work. But recently, like deleted social media off my phone. I feel like that's, it was just something that you referred to too often, and it's been replaced by Claude popping up.
Oh.
And so now rather than
Your new
popping
best
on
friend.
my new best friend, and I like try and go to sleep at night, and then I just like, I've got this idea, I'll write that down, and then I just get lost in this little wormhole, and I just kind of like, but I've been really relentless, and some of the things that used to take me months of back and forth with an advisor, and then you'd get to an okay product at the end, I now do in 2 hours and think in the morning. And because I can close the loop, same with ADHD, when you get stuck or something has frictions getting it done, like I've done a lot, right? But I still struggle with those areas. And now I'm just able to start and finish something in one go and blueprint it and like fit it into my ecosystem. So I'm now looking at starting an AI company, which still needs to be defined and scoped out and all of that.
Something to do with AI.
But I know that my productivity's rocketed, and I reckon I've got a little way of using it that helps with productivity. So that's like, okay, that's like level 1. That's might be useful for people.
So where we go, you're basically filling a vacuum. Basically, now that you've got deleted social media, you've filled the vacuum with something else, which always happens, right? As long as you've got good habits with it.
Yeah.
So going back to this Monday to Friday, so are you still working on the property stuff?
Yeah. So basically, I was full time in property until about 6 weeks ago, and what's happened is I'm probably now spending 25% of the time on property and 70% on AI, 75. But that is like AI for property as well. So I'm like figuring stuff out and learning really quickly. But basically, I haven't stopped doing anything I was doing. I reckon I've just compressed my time so that I've now got loads of it because I'm knocking stuff out so quickly. It's almost like I'm getting my property stuff done on Monday, so I've got Tuesday to Friday to do AI. It is like, that's the efficiency that's come. And I think I wouldn't swap the way I've been working with Claude and ChatGPT in the last 2 months for 2 full-time team members on a combined salary of 80 grand. Like those 2 apps and me are more effective.
So what sort of things are you putting through Claude? Because a lot of people just know ChatGPT, they barely know Claude or Perplexity or all the other ones. So what is it about Claude you've mentioned a few times, and how are you working with it?
So for me, what Claude does is is it produces stuff that looks a lot better. So if you produce a document in ChatGPT and send it to me and don't do much editing of it, I know you've done it in ChatGPT. It's obvious. All right, the point might get across, but I'm like, okay, well, have you read it? Blah, blah, blah. There's certain stuff that comes into it. And Claude was like, can you do a Word document? I was like, yeah. And it did a cover page. It did a table of contents. It organized it all. And it was better than any Word document I've ever produced visually, aesthetically, and the context of it. So like, okay, well, that's pretty interesting. And then I was like, I need to do a spreadsheet when I get to work. I need to update an investor on something, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, can you do the spreadsheet? Do you do spreadsheets? And it said, yeah, I'm pretty good at them, actually. I was like, cool. Can you make me a spreadsheet? This is like 2 months ago. With this, and this factor, these variables, this is the formula, bang, done, got in the shower. Like literally a voice note as I was getting in the shower, got out, fuck me. It looked amazing. It had all the information in it. It was a fully working spreadsheet and it saved me loads of time. And since then, I'm just like, everything I'm just trying to do at once. So a couple of months ago, what happened is I said to a mentorship group that I'm part of, the book's ready, should I just launch it and then just give it to people when I meet them? Or should I put a lot of effort in? And everyone looked at me like, well, obviously put a lot of effort in. I was like, oh, that means I've got to do I don't like posting on social media, so I've got to do Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. And that got a lot of friction and a lot of mini anxiety, right? Right, do the framework. Did the framework, content from the book, chuck it in, read it on a flight over to Dublin, tweaked it, sent it back up, edited it, 90 days of content done in a few days. And not only that, I've now got a blueprint that I reckon there's enough content about me now with doing podcasts, whatever, you can feed all of that in. You can feed in all your fireflies, your meetings, and say, do me another 90 days. And so that was like, wow, I've done that. And I didn't think I was capable of that. So things that I wasn't doing before and I was avoiding because of friction and not being good at them, I'm now like, step back a little bit, build it out. And if you give it a framework, it's exceptional at putting stuff into the structure that you want. It needs a bit of structure. And then that I did. And then that was like, I don't know, 5-6 weeks ago. And I was like, I've done most of what I need to do now. That was my plan for like, so what am I going to do now? And I'm just went and built and tweaked and refined and just like, yeah, I'm just excited by playing with it and yet to find the thing that I think I'm really landing on. But I'm very close. And so, yeah, I'm going to put a lot of effort into it.
So, I mean, I love AI. I like anything kind of futuristic as well, whether it be cryptos or AI and stuff. And there's a lot of dubiousness whenever you throw in some technologies, because kind of your Luddites and stuff, they're always naysaying, and that's to be expected. But I think that the future, you can just see technology as it's advanced over the centuries, and I think that a lot of this stuff is going to be the norm for the population of the world.
It's accelerating really,
and quickly. It's accelerating at a significantly accelerated compound speed, of which like I've never seen anything before. The interesting thing is, I mean, obviously this is a property podcast.
Yeah.
How does that all relate back to the everyday property investor, developer, landlord, property professional? So from all of the projects that you've been doing, 120 million completed deals for you in the kind of consortium, what were those deals? How were you doing everything then? Give us an idea of all of that, and then how that can kind of translate into where you're going with the AI stuff. Because obviously from a content point of view, I get it from spreadsheets and stuff.
Yeah, that's all a bit basic, right? So I suppose I used to do everything, and then when I had kids and needed to step back, I kind of like, right, I need other people in charge, and I left that business, right? So I've now partnered with a new business in Ireland, and I do 20-year leases, and I partner with developers on blocks of flats in the UK,
right.
and I kind of those are my UK niches, a little bit of supported living, and that's kind of it. So I've now gone from being the operator to the sort of like coordinator, and like read a book, 10x is easier than 2x, and who, not how, as a concept in there.
Yeah.
And I think I don't need to know. I do developments. I hate developments. If you ask me to be the person in charge of the development, like I'd just have a little meltdown, right? But I know that my partner knows what he's doing, and that's all I need to know. So it's who, not how. So that's how I've restructured stuff. That's brought me back a lot of time, and then I focus on creating meeting. I like connecting with people. So the book I was just drawn to write anyway, and I just came up with this idea. I thought, that's fantastic. And then so I would have written it whether no one was going to read it, but I think it's quite good, and I think that will position me well and hopefully attract the right audience into property. So it's for anyone really, but I suppose my aim is to get entrepreneurs who don't have property portfolios to make property part of their portfolios. That would be like the one thing I want to get from it, because it should form part of everyone's who's wealthy's strategy. There's no point building a business if you're not building assets. Businesses can come and go, they change, you know, and assets, particularly property, you don't know what's going to happen next week. You don't know what's going to happen next month. You know, wars, whatever, there's black swans, everything. But over 10 years, you know what's going to happen. It's not going to be lower than it is today. And,
it's a relatively safe bet. Safe as
long term. If you've got it structured so that you can manage short-term wobbles in the market, long-term it's safe. So, so in terms of what we're doing now, I suppose this isn't really necessarily a property-related thing, but I think it really is as well. What am I doing? Is it changing what I'm doing? So one thing I needed to do is sort out life insurance, wills, and all of that, okay? And I was like,
why would you need to sort out life insurance and wills for...
Because if I die...
Oh, for your family, you mean?
Yeah.
Right, so I was...
not as a business. No, not as a business. Right. So then I need to do that for me, and I've got the life insurance. I need to improve the will. And then I'm like, but what happens to my businesses? And like, who's going to understand how to run those? And is there an operation plan? And like, all of that is like, oh my God, you seriously got to do all that? But then you can just voice note your thoughts on it all to yourself, just... have fireflies up or whatever, record out your thoughts, write some stuff down. And then I just built out like an operational plan for each SPV, listed out all my partners, and like this should be, I die and everything carries on. And I've got, right, pay off these mortgages first. So you need to get my missus 100 grand in liquidity because like I'm dead. I don't know how long before all the rest of the stuff comes through. Then you're going to need to pay the IHT bill. What's left of that, pay off the mortgages towards the holding company, then this company, then anything else you want to do, we're going to split it in 4 ways between additional shareholder distribution, paying off debt, getting liquid assets, and then new purchases at a higher loan to value, what my loan to value rules are, how I'm going to change that over time as things get safer, what's flexible and what's rigid. I did that in 2 hours, and I built it into an app that now, one of the things that someone's going to do, I've hired this week, is tidy that up into a portal and give it to the trustees, my partner, my operations manager, and I'm like, I think that's better than a lot of people do that. And I did it.
So you put it into an app?
I built it into an app. And so now at the moment, that's an app within Claude, right? And this is one of the things I'm learning, is that I thought I'd built an app. And then I was like, no, okay, it's not built an app. It works over Claude. Yeah. But now I've taken that blueprint and said, write me coaching questions that helps people understand their circumstances so that they can fill out that blueprint and then start seeking the advisors and organize that information. So you give the advisor I want my will, I want it done like this. This is my reasoning, and ask me any questions to sign it off your end. And so the time compression of doing that with someone else, that was quicker to do all of that and make it a scalable product for me than it would have been just to do my own one 4 months ago.
So just to play devil's advocate with this stuff, so you're effectively putting it all into Claude, ChatGPT, AI to be able to give you this advice back. Now, if you go to a will writer or solicitor that does estate planning and all that sort of stuff, how do you know that their advice is not as good as the one in the AI?
So it's a really good point. I've learned a lot of lessons on this recently. And so to be fair, I am still going to those professionals. Okay, this is organisation, the information. And what I think a professional does is, oh, here's your will. They don't say, yeah, but what about this? Or like often they are, this is my trade and I'm going to teach you that bit. And an operational plan, I've not heard anyone do. And I know not hundreds, probably have met hundreds of people with portfolios in the millions where one person and the partner is not doing it and the partner's not going to know what to do with it. And then one of the reasons why that became important for me is because I heard stories of, oh, the portfolio is for sale because the kids don't want it and the person's built it up for them the whole life. And like, that is like, that gives me a panic attack that my kids might one day say that to me. So we'd rather you sell it all because we're not interested in the property portfolio. I'm like, but property is what you need, right? So if that's going to be the case, then how do they run it and how does that get structured?
But in the emotional age, we've gone through industrial age, information age, digital age. In the emotional age, I don't think they need a property.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what
well, they
they'll say.
don't need it.
That's
But
what
this
they'll
is what
say.
I think. An
That's
asset
what
that's going to go up, that's going to pay cash flow. That's what I want them to own, right? So in terms of how do I?
But how would you, if your kid came and told you, Dad, I don't need it?
Well, my oldest is 4 at the moment, so at the moment that's not real risk. But that does mean that, like, then it's an extra layer of complication. How do you get the guardians enough money, and what does that structure look like, right? So yes, you can go to all these people, but to extract the information from you is then a long, protracted process with several meetings and follow up. Whereas if you can do it, say what you think and why, and then give it to them and ask them what you think, that's where you get quite good results. And in terms of a will writer, what information that a will writer knows is not public knowledge. Now, if there is information, and this is what I've learned recently, that Claude doesn't have access to people's brains, it doesn't have access to online training platforms and where the big ticket items are, that is not normally a document you can find online and learn from. And therefore it gives you a quick answer, not the right answer, not from the expert. And that's where you need to be super careful, because it won't tell you that it's giving you a quick shit answer and that it hasn't found
And it's
expert
largely
advice.
agreeable as well. It's
And
trained to
that's
be.
one of the things I want to build in, is a system which says, right, I'm switching it to pessimistic mode. I'm switching it, like it's got to be able to be realistic, to challenge you when the right things are. And what's your priority? Is it speed or is it outcome? If you want a quality outcome, then I'm going to be a pest to you. I'm talking about if I was the LLM, that then ask you all the questions to extract all the information for me, the LLM, to produce you a good outcome. At the moment, it doesn't do that. It just gives you a quick outcome.
This episode is sponsored by Merry Oaks Property Finance Brokerage. Merry Oaks is a finance brokerage for investors, developers, landlords, SMEs across the country, helping you with all of your finance needs. So whether it's bridging, development, commercial, buy-to-lets, HMOs, service accommodation, industrial, hotels, the whole 9 yards, whether it's for your portfolio, whether it's for your business, we can support you. Please contact us. We've got the link in the show notes, and we look forward to hearing from you. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah, because I mean, the reason why I ask as to be a devil's advocate is I think there's a lot of professions that are battling with it, because I hear it all the time now, especially with I mean, you've got solicitors in particular. One of them in particular has told me, but I get it. Every single company now has lots more complaints and very well worded, verbose complaints that are coming through, and these emails are flying back. And then also, what's also happening is those complaints are getting put into ChatGPT and they're going right back out again. And literally, it's just these two AI things going backwards and forwards to each other for the most part, which is a bit fun. The funny point side of it, but the not so funny side of it is when with this particular solicitor, David Burns, great guy from RFB, he's basically saying, I've spotted quite a few times. You can see all the hyphens, you can see all the bold, you can see all the layout, you can see what's ChatGPT or what's an AI kind of response or not. He's saying that these things are getting people into hot water because it's citing certain type of case law, certain this, that, and the other, which is true. It has relevance, but actually is not the whole picture.
Yeah.
And it's therefore getting people into very, very costly mistakes.
I think you're right, and I think that's where the user still needs to read it and say, does this answer make sense, and do I think it's correct? Like, I do that. You've got to do that. And in terms of, you can see it's done by ChatGPT, but like, I don't think you could tell if I've wrote something on Claude now. And maybe it takes me a
Claude's
couple
pretty
of goes.
good. No, Claude's much
It's
better.
very different. It's very
Claude is
different.
better. Claude's
But in
better.
terms of that, like, have you ever had a solicitor make a mistake?
Yeah, me
I've
personally, no, but I know of them. Yeah, of course.
I've had tons.
Yeah, I can
Now,
imagine.
maybe that's the speed and the volume in which we bought at. But I've never, there's very few professionals that I come across that haven't made a mistake. And I
Yeah,
think
human
they're
errors.
costly mistakes. And it's not like the solicitors, oh yeah, they put their hands up, they rectify it, or their PI, like, it's a pain in the arse. If they make a mistake, they will need to pay to unrectify it for them. Like, I just don't think humans are that good at stuff either. And I think if you combine the two, you get a better outcome. And then if you do the work yourself, you get a quicker outcome. And some things I do would take teams of people with multiple advisors to do. And I think, you know what, I'm not going to do that because it's going to take me away from the main business. But now you can do stuff. So I think the things that you're going to be able to do is going to level up things that you wouldn't have otherwise got round to as well.
Interesting. So you say you're not an out-and-out developer, in that you probably don't want to roll up your sleeves, get on site, muddy boots, start hanging doors.
I wouldn't know what to say to them when I get there. They were like, someone could just fool me and say, "Oh, we can't do this. We've got to charge you more because of that." I'd be like, "Oh, okay,
Sure."
You
Go
know,
for
yeah,
it.
yeah. I probably wouldn't be saying, but do you know what I mean? I'm not.
How many extras? Jeez.
Yeah, exactly. That's not my thing.
So when it comes back to property stuff, with your area of expertise, is it crunching numbers, finding the deal on paper, making sure it works? Is it negotiating with landowners? Is it scouring through auction catalogs?
I was very good at all of those things, and I did enjoy it. And to be fair, like I've gone through a bit of change and like gone from doing everything to trying to like niching the strategies, niching what I do. I would say now what I'm really good at is extracting someone's circumstances and saying what they should do and what would be good for them and explaining it to them depending on their depth of knowledge. You want to speak with an expert on a topic, I'll chat to them. You want to speak to someone who doesn't know anything but needs to understand what they do and don't understand and have it explained to them in a way they understand.
So do that on me a little bit. So how would that work? So I mean, I'm not going to hopefully share all of my skeletons in my closet on a podcast.
Yeah. All right.
But give me an idea of how that might work.
Okay, so what's attracted you to the idea of?
I've got no skeletons in my closet, by the way.
None of us do.
Go on, tell me. What was the question? Sorry.
All right. So assuming that you've then said, Max, I'm interested in property. Right?
Yes, I'm very interested in property.
Okay, so
I
what
love
attracts
it.
you to
I have a
the idea of
podcast on
property?
it.
Yeah, okay. Well, you know what you're doing already, right? So I'm talking about someone.
Oh, right.
Well, I mean, I can talk to you about it, but basically, why are you interested in property? What are your circumstances? What's your vision and needs? What type of things do you think you want to do in property and why? Have you thought about this and this? Because they're good options or something for you to consider in addition, like supported living. You get to turn your gross rent into a net rent. You don't have the same management. My whole portfolio is managed in a few hours a week of an assistant's time and not a full noisy business. Do you want a noisy, and that I've also created into a follow-on app and questionnaire, categorizing people where they are now, what would be the best next steps for them to learn on their journey. Because quite often I've got asked, what advice would you give to people starting out in property now? Well, what's their circumstances?
So it depends on the individual, depends on what their end goal is, and you reverse engineer it, all that sort of stuff.
Some people are into asset protection, they've got lots of cash, they've gone from a trading business. Some people need to make their money, in which case they're going to be in higher risk situations. They're going to be 75% loan to value, they're going to be borrowing money. And how do they want to structure things and what do they know about doing that? And then really is setting up the structure and the plan right so that then you can go away and do that.
So is this kind of an element of mentorship, training? I
don't really know, to be honest. Like in a way, I just wrote the book and thought, what's going to be useful for
What's
people?
the name of the book?
Why Property.
Good question.
So, I mean, I was just writing for YPN and I thought, fuck, I've said I'll do something and the deadline's tomorrow morning. What am I going to do? And I did 4 things that make property great. And I was like, hang on, there's a 5th. I was like, hang on, that's all there is. And no one talks about it for all the people that are in property. So property is the only asset class with income, capital growth like inflation, leverage, stability, and compounding. So most of the other assets have a few of those. Gold has capital growth but no income. Stocks have income and growth, but it's smaller than property, and it's not stable really, and it's not that easy to leverage. If you do leverage it, you're sophisticated or you're at a higher risk, and that stability in property means a lot. And when you tie those 4 things together and you get consistently higher numbers because of them, then compounding on 10% versus 5% leads to an extraordinarily different outcome. And so if you make long-term decision to invest in property, I don't think you're going to go that wrong if you're not taking risks and over leveraging to the moon and structuring something trying to do too clever. If you want to be boring and basic, I can't see you going wrong over a 20, 30 year period, 10 year period. And it's basically about all the basics. And I don't think for all the people that know that property works really well, that they could boil it down into that, or they have, because otherwise they would have written the book. And it's just a short book. And hopefully if you're in property, you think, I'm glad I'm in it. And it's quick read and you learn a few things. And if you're not, you think maybe I should consider that as part of my portfolio of what things I do.
You've done a variety of different things in property. You personally, what's your favorite thing that you did? You mentioned the one that was on the auction one. The stuff that you've done in Ireland. What's the differences? What's your kind of if somebody was to ask you, what's your favorite property strategy? You mentioned title splits. When you look back, what's the thing that you're most fond of?
So I suppose it's not necessarily even a strategy, it's more a layer over the strategy, and that probably is supported living and leases. I've been into that for a long time. I like the idea of working hard up front, but then be able to say, I've worked hard, I'm going on holiday now, and I'm not going to worry about stuff, right? And supported living is a low noise business if you choose the right provider, the right person, the right terms. If you do the work up front, you've got 3 to 5 years with no voids, low management, low maintenance, and your gross rent's near enough your net rent. And if you're on an HMO, you don't have to pay the utility bills, and it just really makes sense as a wrapper. And I think you're also then helping people out in housing that otherwise can't get it. It's quite hard for charities and people to find a whole empty house at the beginning, because normally a tenant moves out and they need the whole house for their skills. So when you've freshly done a renovation, it's quite a good and unique opportunity. So that's one thing. And the other is, I think, just like Ireland, I go door to door and I get there quicker than driving to Birmingham. I come back and I think my train's in 15 minutes, I'm not going to make it. When I land and it's just straight out. So it's just quick and easy. It's 1% stamp duty up to £1 million and 2% on the difference on anything over £1 million, right? You think about what we're paying in the UK up to £1 million and what that eats into your margin. You've then got lower inflation, lower interest rates. You've got an economy that, when I first wrote the book version 1 last summer, was 42% debt to GDP ratio, has now gone down to something like 34%, right? So they're moving in the right direction. They've got a budget surplus, and you think about black swans. I think we're at a time of high risk, and now Trump's doing what he's doing, and like, what impact's that going to have, and when's that going to sort itself out? If there's a crisis, I fancy my portfolio being in Ireland is better able to handle it. Now, at the moment, my personal portfolio is probably 3/4, 2/3 UK, and I'm looking to build up what I'm doing in Ireland. We're just finishing 2 decent projects there.
What are the projects?
So one's like basically an HMO, but it's commercial to HMO, and that's going to have a care provider take it on a 10-year FRI lease. So that's an FRI, which you don't normally get in the UK. I do a bit of that on the 20-year stuff. And then the other one's just a block of flats. So they've got a thing called pre-63s, which is just property that was converted before 1963. So it's like, basically if you imagine a block of flats which kind of been chopped up without an architect, right? So there's like smaller units, living, but they are everywhere in Ireland. It's like standard, so there's so many accommodation that's like that, but you can get heavy refurb. So in the centre of town, you can be in a nice building, step outside and be like, derelict building, derelict building, derelict building. So there's refurb opportunities with low stamp duty where a traditional refurb can add value. I think that's pretty hard in the UK at the moment. You have to have like a really good niche to overcome that stamp duty hurdle and make a profit. So then you've got a dense block of flats at the end of it, and your yield covers the bridging. Our latest offer on bridging was 90% loan to cost on the purchase price, plus the refurb money, and it was at 8.5% interest. And we're going to get a 12% yield out of it on cost. And so within a few months, you're breaking even while you refinance.
What's the when did you start investing in Ireland? How long ago?
I think it was around 2016, something like that. I've probably been doing it 10 years now. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good amount of time. So and it's been performing better and better. Because one of the reasons why I mentioned it is, like when you hear about how well it's doing. Did you hear about the economies in Europe that were underperforming? And it was the pigs, the Portugal, Ireland, Greece, Spain.
Yeah.
And then also I was around in 2008. Where Ireland was doing really well and everybody was investing in it heavily, and then suddenly the rug got pulled and everybody was way over levered and the market just completely collapsed.
And it was overheated by a bigger degree than the UK market was. And our accountant said, it's not our accountant, sorry, he was our first business partner in Ireland, and he said, I was an accountant and I didn't even see it coming. Banks were giving me money where they knew I was in negative cash flow on a long-term basis, and banks were making those decisions, right? Well, that's crazy that anyone was doing that, but I'll be worth more soon. Just got to survive this bit until And so that logically just doesn't stack up. But that is one of the reasons why it's a good market, because after that crash, banks didn't lend, builders didn't build. They've now got a massive housing crisis, 14,000 rundown homes, 33,000 in homeless hostels and hotels and stuff. And you think because their crisis was so bad, the average person in the UK thinks it's a good idea to own investment property. The average person in Ireland doesn't now. So there's less competition, and you've got heavy refurbs and low stamp duty and lower interest rates.
And when we say Ireland, are we talking Dublin or are we talking other towns and cities?
Dublin, really. A couple of times we've gone to the commuter towns outside of that, and I imagine over time we'll go a little bit further. It's just we've considered it, but just operationally, it's just probably going to
I mean, it is a good city because it's the largest city in the world because it keeps doubling and doubling and doubling.
I wonder where you go with that. I was like, I can walk from one end to the other, so I don't think it's that big. Yeah, no, that's good.
All right, very good. So, okay, so you've done quite a fair bit, and it can see that your mind works at 1,000,000 miles an hour, going at probably almost at the speed of Claude and ChatGPT combined. Now, if once you get, what is the, like you said, you just stepped away from the property stuff, so you're wanting to kind of go more.
No, I've not stepped away from it. So I'm going to continue growing the business I've got in Ireland, right? So it's not my business, but two people I knew very well joined up. They created a business. I was still working at the other company then. Then when I left and went on my own, I said, look, I want to do some stuff in Ireland, and now I effectively have a joint venture company with them, and I take people from the UK, find their circumstances need, and find a way of getting them into the Irish market through us on a hands-off basis, basically.
Like turnkey kind of,
yeah, turnkey stuff, right? Because anyone, I think that, and to be fair, my experience is as soon as you need to start holding someone's hand, it's actually more effort than doing it all yourself.
There's a guy that does stuff in the north. There's quite a few actually now, because you get good yields in the north of England, and they do, and he calls it boring buy-to-lets. It's a guy called Jamie York. Basically, yeah. So
I saw it with him the other day.
Yeah, oh, really? Yeah. So I find it really interesting actually, because a lot of people want all the sexy stuff. They want the 20-year FRI social housing lease. They want to be doing the commercial conversion. They want to be doing, ground up developments. They want to do air rights and all, they want to do planning uplift and all this other stuff. When actually, for the most part, somebody's a tech guy, works at Google, makes 150, 200 grand, wants to just park his cash somewhere, wants to get an 8% yield, and hopefully it'll double up in value.
It's boring, but if you think, one of the things that I put in the book, right, is that leverage is force 2. And if you're boring and you get a 75% mortgage on a 100 grand house and you put 25 grand in, and that goes up with the Bank of England's target inflation, where if it goes below that level, they're going to pull the levers. And so let's just say
2-3% is always going to be there.
Let's just call it 2%, right? Let's just call it 2%, and that's actually 8% on your deposit, and that's without any cash flow, and that's without any years where it goes up more than that, and that's without any reinvestment of the money that you didn't need, the surplus cash flow, and reinvesting that. And it's just like, cool, that is good.
That's decent, isn't it? The funny thing is, we just had another guy on who's also a property investor, a winner, and he bought a property, I think just outside Birmingham, bought it for 98 grand in 2014, and in 2026 it's valued at 220 grand. So it's gone up double in value over 10 years, which is pretty impressive. And the rent has also gone from like 600 grand to 1100 or something. So that's pretty good going. At the same time, though, there are some properties that don't perform as well. So, for example, I bought a new build, and
why did you do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I met my missus. She'd bought a shared ownership, and it was a 1-bedroom flat. And you can't rent them out when it's shared ownership. You have to live in it. So you almost become like a prisoner of your own of your own flat. And if it's a 1-bed, you grow out of it pretty quickly. Anyway, so we moved in. We couldn't move out. We couldn't sell it because actually she bought it at a massively inflated price, and all the second-hand stock was selling a little bit cheaper in the local area, and then the market's a little bit stagnant. So it's arguably a negative equity as well, and it hasn't moved anyway. In price, it's probably about 7 years, 8 years, and it's literally exactly the same.
Flats, I don't think have done
in northwest London. So I was like,
yes, there's areas and there's
new
pockets
build,
and there's trends, right?
So we had to buy it just to move out, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that went wrong for me is there was I think it would trade in 2008 in Oxfordshire, and I bought it in something like 2016. So you think what capital prices did in that area, and the price it was first bought for was something like 220,000, and I was offered at 115, but I had to buy it in like 2 days. I thought, I'm not going to go wrong. Bought it. And it was one of these ones where there was a peace of mind charge, talking about solicitor mistakes earlier. And I said, do you mind about that? I was like, that's fine, crack on and buy it. He didn't clarify. I said that, to be fair, I shouldn't have. And equally, he should have asked, what's a peace of mind charge and how much is it? And it was 280 quid a month. And it was just like calling the tenant to check whether it was a retirement village, is why it went wrong, and whether they're okay or not. I'm like, well, if the tenant's okay, can you just like not call them and not charge me that? I don't know. And basically charges like that, which I think shared ownership has a similar analogy in that it's basically a pain in the ass. Somewhere along that. Some people say it's not, and I'm an expert in it. Cool. But
I'm not a big fan, I must admit.
Leasehold, anything quirky, like it's going to be more likely to be wrong. And then of course with commercial property, you're either going to do really well or not so well because it's trend based, what's happening with businesses. And where I agree with Jamie is houses that people want to live in, like there's always going to be a demand that roughly tracks inflation or exceeds it. Everything else will be trend based, I think. And if it's a normal house, it might have that overlay of that trend going on it. But the one that I'd be most consistent on it tracking inflation or above consistently would be boring buy-to-let.
Yeah, I agree actually. And, you know, I think it's only the people that go on these courses really that have all these shiny pennies because they learned a new way of working every single week or month or so. And it starts to cause a little bit more confusion. I mean, that's a generalization, but I think for the majority of the people that want to just park their money into gold, park their money into the index, you know, the top 100 FTSE companies, wants to put a bit in devices, wants to put in a bit of property. They just want to be able to go and find a good property in a good location with a good yield that's going to basically have a little bit of a profit margin. They don't even need that money. They'll probably just pay down the mortgage and then have it unencumbered in 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And that for them is a big win.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Is that something that you're looking to do? So when you take people over to Ireland, will it be value add stuff? Will you be doing refurbs on it? Or will you just buying kind of like straightforward good yields? And what are the yields right now in Ireland?
Well,
for a single straightforward buy to let.
So I don't do straightforward single buy to let. I don't do that in anything. So whilst I'm a fan of it, logically, I've got my niches that I prefer.
But is it similar to England?
Well, and to be fair with Jamie, what he does very well is he buys below market value or adds value, right? So that's a great edge if you're then doing boring buy to let. That's where he's making his money. I'm not so good at that bit. I'm good at the really high net yield, great lease on it type thing. So my ROIs are good, but my value adds not as much. But in Ireland, we kind of get the combination of both. Partners do the value add, and they're dense units. So they're either, they don't call them HMOs out there, but shared houses, 6 to 8 with a permitted development extension. You know,
right.
You add a bit of value, you get a good yield out of it. Or the blocks of flats, they get a good yield. They're small units, but I mean, they're valued, I think, in a really good area, nice flats. Bearing in mind, they're still be a smaller 2-bed than you get over here. Might be down to 8.5% yield. Up to like 9.5 for north of the city, one that's mainly 1-beds and studios. That's the yield on valuation. We're adding value, so we're all in for a yield that's higher than that. And so, those blocks basically, like if you've got probably minimum 300 to 500, really, I'd be more interested at the upper end of that as a starting point, and would kind of want people to be able to reinvest some money annually. And then we'll either buy and develop a property and then they can buy it off us at a small discount, and they're like an exit benefit. Or we'll do the project in their name, and we'll give them a discount, and the extra value we add will come across as a fee. And so like that's how we do.
So there's a couple of different ways to do it.
Yeah.
And you're living in Brighton, so you mentioned it's quicker to get to Dublin than it is to Birmingham driving. How do you fly there? Do you go to
Gatwick?
Gatwick Airport and go
So
there?
I live relatively near a station, and I just like 5 minutes.
Go straight to Gatwick. And then how long is the flight?
I think it's about an hour.
An hour flight.
They say an hour and 15 minutes so that Ryanair can take off 15 minutes late, land you.
Is it
And
really?
then they say, another flight on time. You're like, we left 15 minutes late. They just pretend the flight takes longer. So I forget how long it actually takes, but it's about an hour.
How do you feel about keeping your cards close to your chest? Because we've got all of these, we're having these podcasts, you're sharing about, Ireland's great, and then suddenly it gets like, this is probably the next biggest show to Joe Rogan, so there's going to be millions of people watching it. But there's going to be property people watching it, property investors.
Yeah.
Are you worried that suddenly, there's going to be a flood of people that go there? Or
no, because people don't take that kind of action.
Yeah, it's all about the action.
The average person doesn't, right? And even if someone said, what do you do, how do you do it, and I gave them that as a blueprint and made it really easy for them, I think most people would then look at that and say, cool, you guys know what you're talking about, and that's quite complicated, and like the terminology being slightly different or whatever, can you just do it for me? I mean, they get a good deal for us, right?
Thank you so much for tuning in. We really, really appreciate the support, and it helps me, gives me the motivation to get bigger and better guests on all for you. I also wanted to let you know that I do have another YouTube channel. It's called Saam Lowni. It's just my name, and it's all about everything that I've learned in property and business over the last 20 years. It has site visits from our Marriott's clients, so you can go behind the scenes and see how they're getting on with their projects and the trials and tribulations, the successes that they've had, as well as some tips on my thoughts about the market, about the game of Monopoly, and a whole bunch of other things that bounce around in my head. We have the Monday morning musing, which I do send out on an email as well. But please do check out the YouTube channel at Saam Lowni. We'll have the link in the show notes because that's slightly different stuff, and I'm sure you'll enjoy that too. Otherwise, back to the episode.
So it's like, you know, if you really want to build a portfolio and you really want to do it yourself, and you, like, I still help you, that's fine. Like, you know, the vast majority of people aren't in that camp, and it's a big enough market with 14,000 empty homes in the centre of Dublin that I don't think we'll be outbidding each other on the same.
And I'm assuming that you've looked at like Brighton and those areas and stuff, and just decided there's not enough opportunity.
So I do stuff in Sussex. Got a project at the moment, but that's on the 20-year leases. So I partner with someone who's a developer, and we've just got it through actually. 20-year FRI index-linked lease, no breaks, on a residential block of 6 apartments, and that goes for specially supported housing. So the supported living deals I mentioned, where you pay for the insurance and the structure, they're internal repairing leases. And when you get a tenant that's not going to get better, so drug, alcohol, domestic abuse, everything like that, even though there's going to be a new supply of tenants coming in, because they're meant to leave, the government thinks we're going to do short-term funding.
Yeah.
But when you have a tenant that's going to need a home for life, because they're always going to need looking after because of autism, learning difficulties, physical disabilities, they get long-term funding. So then they can do a long-term lease, and if a long-term lease, they need the building to be new. So for conversions or new builds, 6 to 12 blocks of flats, it's quite a good market for. And then because of we get really good annual rent on it, and there's some lease costs that go with it, but then it was a very popular investment for funds and pension funds. And then the collapse of one fund, because they were buying the wrong leases. So some people can do 20-year leases, great. And someone said, oh, I'm doing one. I said, can you tell me a bit about it? And they described it. I'm like, something doesn't feel right. Can you just let me look into it for you? Give me some names. And it was not a registered provider. So they should not have been doing it. That is going to go wrong, or they're doing something dodgy, or I don't know what I'm talking about. And maybe there's lots I don't know. So that's possible, but I think it's going to go wrong. And so the one that we work with, or our primary one, they got like 30 million quid in the bank. They got like really long, level of experience. They got good governance and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
and who you're backing is important.
Exactly. There's no surefire way of eliminating risk usually. And there's got to be an element, but you can certainly minimize it.
It's really common of looking at it this way in commercial property.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's your tenant? How long's the lease? What are the terms? And what's their accounts like? What's their trading history like? What's their business model, and how could that change going forward with the world changing? And if it's like Joe Blogg's limited company signing up to a 20-year lease, it's worth nothing, because he can not pay you and you've got no consequence. Yeah. And if it's like Tesco's on a bulletproof leaf with, the parent company signing the lease, and there's no break clauses in it, most people are pretty happy. So it's like, what's the covenant? What are the terms of the lease? How can you be affected? And have you done a due diligence report on your tenant, basically?
Very good, very good. I've got a few quick fire questions.
Go.
What was the first thing you thought about this morning?
Has my Claude Pack updated that I was asking it to do 10 documents just before I went to sleep?
You mentioned that. You did mention that.
So sometimes it takes like 20 minutes to do a response if you ask it to do enough work at once. And I had like a real redesign on stuff, and I just like, can you get this all done for the morning?
So what the difference between Claude and Claude Bot? Have you?
So to be honest, this is one of the embarrassing things. I talk about it like I'm scratching the surface. I want to learn with everyone else, and like sometimes I hear about stuff and I'm like, that sounds awesome, and I had no idea it existed. Like, I still haven't got into Claude Cowork because I'm doing something such a pace at the moment. I need to almost like finish that journey and then start adding stuff on. And like to research other bits in AI, I'd rather like move in my direction. And so I've done that. I'm getting to the point. Well, I hired someone full time this week, right? Who's been in AI for 18 months, created apps, created stuff that works, and my network connections and vision, I'm hoping to be a good partnership. So I want to kind of like. Really good.
It is the future. It is the future. It is the future. Hopefully, I'm a visionary. I would love for all the robots to do all the work so we can sit on the beach all day.
Yeah, man.
What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I don't often have breakfast, so I didn't have breakfast. But then I came back and had scrambled eggs before I came here, so we can call that breakfast. It was in between breakfast and lunch.
You can't come over. Oh, you got here too, though, so it was a bit late.
Yeah, no, it was a late breakfast because
So
it was
no
after the gym.
breakfast then?
I don't have breakfast. And do you know what? Talking about losing weight in the last couple of years and stuff, the less I eat, the less I'm hungry and the sharper I am.
You know what? The person that said that before, and the reason why I asked this stuff is because we are generally high performance people, very ambitious, hardworking, constantly got ideas, constantly want to execute, we're action takers. All that takes a lot of energy, and how you start the day is really important. And it's phenomenal how many people don't have breakfast. I didn't even realize. And you never ask anybody like, "What did you have for breakfast?" It's not a question.
Some people say it's the fuel for the day. Others say it gets in
literally,
the
I
way
would
of their
always tell
creativity.
that.
But
My dad used to always tell me that.
I think it's different for different people, right?
I think it's a generation, because I was also told that they told you to have breakfast so that they could sell you the products.
Yeah, because they're taking like what you were eating for breakfast, like you need breakfast, so buy cornflakes now. And like there's actually loads of stuff which the industry and everyone thinks is a certain way because we were missold something. Oats are good for you or whatever. Like I don't think porridge is that bad, but it's basically carbohydrate and it's basically a sugar, right?
Certainly all the Cocoa Pops that I had, which I absolutely loved. Still do. But I don't eat it anymore.
I remember someone telling me that cornflakes had sugar in when I was a kid, and I was like, but they're not Frosties, man. And I'm like, surely, and they're like, no, even that's got sugar in. Frosties is just like ridiculous by comparison. So it
was a big letdown. But yeah, I've started to cut out breakfast as well, and it's a very common thing apparently. Very good. If you could, what's your favorite emoji?
My favorite emoji, I quite like the really smiley face one with the little hands at the side because it's like it's like that little jokey one, but I don't use that way. That's my common one. Common one's probably the rocket. The
rocket.
Like,
you sound like a person that would use the rocket a lot. All right. If you could ask me one question, what would it be?
Where do you see your core business changing over the next 12 to 24 months? If AI gets as good as people think it can?
I'll be out of a job.
You reckon?
Why would people need to call me? They would just basically go, "Hey, can you tell me what products are available?" All right, great, thanks.
That's interesting.
If it's as powerful as what you said it was. I think a lot of things, I think solicitors, we were talking about that before, I think they could be out of a job as well, because all the case law, all that sort of stuff, it's all in back.
And the problem with solicitors is most of it, you're paying 250 quid an hour plus VAT for, and it's done by a paralegal who's on like a training program where they don't even get paid minimum wage. And you're like, and they just sign at the end.
Eventually, any job that you're stuck at a laptop all day, the computer doesn't need you to input the data because it's already in there.
That I think is what I'm working on that I can't quite articulate well enough yet, but redoing very similar data. Like banks send form and they want it in PDF and they want you to write it down, and you've got to take your portfolio and do it in this order for them. And you're like, I shouldn't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, we literally have admin support that helps me get that, because basically every bank has got their own format of how they want an A&L or a property portfolio schedule. And I'm like, I've already sent you it, and it's pretty comprehensive because I know what are you going to ask, but you still want it in that format because that's how you review it and digest it.
Stuff like that, I see AI saving a lot of people time, and I think that's what's really going to happen, and that's what my aim with AI is to save people a huge amount of time. And I think there is no reason that, provided those columns and that data is organized correctly to begin with, that should need a human going forward.
Yeah, I mean, with my business, I think to a certain extent, though, I think there'll be a number of different like brokers, digital brokers, effectively, and then I become a salesman, a relationship person to say, hey, use my one, I'm part of this thing. And then they go and, and that, so
you'll probably get more efficient.
Yeah,
and
so it'll
evolve
to
grow with the same number of staff and stuff like that.
The technical, analytical part of it will
people still like a human. They still like people to explain it and things in the right way. They still like a face that they can trust. And I think there's still like is AI going to just get something really wrong kind of thing at the moment.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
But I think your productivity will increase, and that will help you in a way in the business. And
very much so. What's the best bit of advice you've ever received?
The first one that came into my head is not necessarily the best, but like it's screaming at me as a strong bit of advice. And a billionaire I once had lunch with, and he said to me, if you've got a mortgage, you don't own your property, the bank does. And I thought, he's wrong. And it just scratched at me away for years. And then you meet someone in Ireland and they say it's true. And it's obviously not true. You own the property, you got the title, but like the point is, so you're on the hook for someone else, and they're in control. They've done the terms and conditions, and they ain't changing them for you.
It's their money.
So I think that's an important lesson just to bear in mind sometimes.
Worst bit of advice.
If something's too good to be true, then it is.
Usually is.
I think that's the killer opportunity. I think people who said that, and they use it as an excuse not to look into something. And I like to reframe that one as, if something sounds too good to be true, do your fucking due diligence and find out what's really going on, because if it's true, then that's more exciting. Very good, Max. Thank you very much. If people want to reach out to you and find out a little bit more about what you're working on, what's the best way they can find you? Max Scott Property. And if you look that up, you'll find me. Website, LinkedIn, Instagram, it's all that. So. Cool. We'll leave the links in the show notes. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best with everything you're doing with the AI stuff. I'm sure we might have you back when you've taken over the world. That'd be great. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you. Cheers.